Milsim West force-on-force events are divided into three factions, two of which are opposing each other on the field. The main factions being NATO, RUSFOR and militia. Militias is always attached and fights alongside RUSFOR. Everything in this video is described in explicit detail in the tag sub, the event written guideline. My goal is to create a visual guide while showcasing real examples of gear and loadouts and spreading some advice to players interested in attending. When it comes to building a loadout, my personal thought process is that 1. It needs to fit you. What I mean by that is that recreating a kit one-to-one can be a decent starting point, but at the end of the day, the individual pieces of gear and placement of it needs to be suitable for you. You're gonna be living in your gear for 2 days, so it really needs to be comfortable for you and it needs to work. Number 2, the loadout should match the spirit of the game. Also guys, I cannot cover everything in a short YouTube video, so the main point I want to get across is how to nail the correct vibe. Everything else like cold weather gear, layers, gloves, boots, rucksacks, I'm not really gonna cover that stuff too much. I will comprehensively touch over guns towards the end of the video. I wanted to start to discuss militia kit since it is what I believe to be confused and done poorly the most. At MSW, militia is supposed to be a Russian-backed group, therefore equipment should match that vibe. While the tax-op allows for M81, which I'm sure it was supposed to be an easy thing to pull off in the earlier days of Milsim West, I think it is really easy to make it look out of place. You are supposed to embrace that homeless militant look with suboptimal gear. The true art form to pull off a great kit is to mix and match the right combination of trash gear. Many pieces of kosher militia gear can be put together for extremely cheap thanks to AliExpress. Okay guys, I'm actually gonna do this live to show you how stupid easy it is. So what you wanna do is find chest rig AK. There you go, totally valid option to use, $16 chest rig. This will look pretty good. Oh, here we go, another R22 chest rig, more of a Soviet era one. But again, this stuff is all good stuff. For Russian uniform, here we go, a set of these for $50, really hard to beat. Again, this will look perfect. Something else you could look at, some cheaper EMR replicas. Again, these will look apart. You can mix and match, obviously, to get the look you like. So some absolute giga chad actually put together a very nice guide for you guys to follow to put together a nice kit. Unfortunately, I don't know how to credit this person because I don't know who it is. This was on the Milsim West Discord. But it starts by going into uniform camos that are acceptable, including M81 and green, which are tax-op compliant. We talked about this. But then all kinds of other patterns that will look good, even if you mix and match them. The guide is going to go into load-bearing equipment, some of which are unfortunately getting a bit harder to find. So these are some of the options that are actual, Russian options. The SSO stuff is actually really good. And this kind of gives you an idea of the vibe you want to go for. So more popular option like the SSO Smersh is incredibly popular, and the 6SH 112 and 117, these are like the battle jackets of Russia, kind of like the FLCs. Some other equipment that you could use, this is one I showed on AliExpress, is dirt cheap, you can find replicas for under $20. Now looking at armor, if you do want to run armor, these are some obviously good options, 6B23 being kind of like the slick version of an armor carrier, if you want to call it that. It's bulky as shit. And then the 6B45, which is a more modular plate carrier, and the 46. Helmets, these are kind of difficult to get unless you find the replica 6B47 like I showed you on AliExpress, but all of these are acceptable. And then, nowadays in Ukraine especially, we're starting to see a lot of, these high-cut Chinese replica helmets with the rails, and these actually, I think, look apart as well. So if that's something you want to go for, feel free. And then it goes into rucksacks and whatnot, which I don't want to get into too much, but here you can see it real quick. RUSFOR is the representation of modern-day Russian armed forces. There is a few ways you could approach this. The first way is to replicate what is referred amongst people as Bean Kit, which is essentially the Ratnik infantry modernization of Russia. Tons of videos and material online can give you full details on each piece, but generally the bulk of it is gonna be EMR uniform, 6B47 helmet with cover, a 6B45 plate carrier with either directly mounted pouches or with a 6SH-112 or similar type of battle jacket on top. Finding fully original pieces for this kit can be expensive all at once, but you can alleviate some of the cost by buying certain repro pieces. Just do some research to make sure the quality is at least decent. Another way you could approach Russian gear is to replicate whatever the hell is going on in Ukraine right now. There are a ton of references for you to get inspired from. Just be mindful that multicam uniforms are not allowed on RUSFOR at Milsim West. Yes, Russia does use multicam, but the rules are set there. I will say that a multicam plate carrier with a full Russian kit is acceptable if done right, and you do see quite often nowadays. Some actual Russian brands you could be looking at are things like ARS Arma, SSO, ANA Tactical, and there is tons more. It really is a rabbit hole. There is a ton of Russian equipment that fits the category and I cannot cover it all. But like I said, just do your own research, look up some pictures and kind of get the general vibe of the Russians nowadays, and you're probably gonna be on good track. Of course, like all the other faction, specific groups will do specific impression of different Russian units, and there is a lot, and I'm honestly not too knowledgeable on most of them, but I am quite biased for Druzina and their Soberteric kits. The beginner-friendly faction. I say this because the kit is readily accessible and nowadays even cheaper to source than M81 uniforms. Your goal is to look like basic infantry grunts of the United States Army. That is what basic NATO should look like, and there is plenty of available material and information to replicate it. Of course, uniforms are plenty available on eBay. OCP is pretty much dirt cheap, like I said before, way cheaper than what M81 used to be, and the selection is endless. When it comes to protective equipment such as plate carriers and body armor, for some reason US Army gear can get really expensive, but there is of course workarounds. When it comes to helmets, replicas are available, but don't forget full cuts, they look perfect for the role. Another way to get a piece of kit that it's very accurate and dirt cheap is to get a TAPS chest rig. They hold a ton of ammo and they're again super cheap on eBay. Now, I might catch some hate for this. This shitty Condor plate carrier in multicam or OCP has probably seen more actual usage by US Army infantrymen than some of those micro rigs people are running. And of course it goes without saying that actual issued pouches are pretty much unlimited on eBay, and again, very cheap to source. Plenty of material on the internet to scout, to check out some kits. The airborne units have very nice grunt kits you can look at. If you desire to step up your NATO loadout a little bit without looking out of place or too specialized, a Ranger loadout, it's a good way to do so. Of course, you're gonna have to buy a bit better equipment. Here, you're gonna start to see mostly Cry uniforms, AVS plate carriers, but you can also go with something like a Cry JPC or SPC. But overall, the kit gets more expensive. Of course, helmets become the normal fast helmets, what's nowadays super common. You can find replicas of pretty much all of this equipment at a decent price. But again, you really gotta be careful what you end up buying because a lot of the cheap Chinese gear can look bad if it's not made correctly. This is a personal gripe of mine, but there is nothing that ruins a kit more than these damn headphones. Of course, Milsim West will have specialized groups of people that run different NATO kits, Marine kits, Polish infantry kits, British infantry kits, and the list kind of goes on. But if you want to find something more unique, you know, you have to get in touch with them and they will help you sort yourself out. Beginning with militia, this faction follows a one attachment rule, but you still gotta be mindful about thinking about the spirit of the game. You could come with an HNK 416 with a Neotech, but it's gonna look real dumb. So regarding this, any Russian weapon is gonna look apart. Ideally, wood furniture looks really good for this kind of role. So any older design, maybe AKMs are great, 74s, PKMs, you name it. There is some other non-Russian weapons that fit as well. I would say FALs, Galils, and G3s could probably kind of fit there if you really want to, but it's so easy just to get an AK-74 and call it a day. And maybe even some World War II guns could possibly pass. When it comes to RUSFOR, so this is Modern Russia, therefore modernized AK platforms. Ideally, black polymer furniture looks best. Painted guns also look good. AK-12s are a good fit, and then you can modernize your rifle with, Zenico or Zenico reproduction, rails, optics, you name it, really depending on the unit you're going for. When it comes to NATO, there is a lot more, I guess, options, but I feel like a lot of them can look really bad. Therefore, again, it depends on your kit, but if you're going for a more basic grunt look like, maybe a M4A1 look is great. Any sub-mod looking AR-15 style looks awesome. And, M249s, 240, all that stuff is good. URGIs can also look pretty good if you're going for a more high-speed kind of thing. Anyhow, thank you for watching. This video truly is meant to be a generalized look. I can't cover everything in 10 minutes, it's kind of impossible, but hopefully this puts you in the right path. Again, tons of resources aside of this one, but I hope this has been proven helpful or entertaining at least. Thank you for watching, catch you next week.